Hey everyone, it's Justine and welcome to another card tutorial. It's been a little while and I apologize for being away for a bit. Today I'm celebrating the new release of Ellen Hutson's brand new release from Julie Ebersol, and I'm going to be using the Sakura Mondo stamp set and coordinating die to create this card. I'm grabbing a piece of Tim Holtz watercolor paper and I'm using the non-textured side. And I'm going to rub this here with my embossing bag very quickly because I don't want any stray embossing powder sticking. Now, I'm not one to do watercolor. You probably know that from watching my channel, just, the occasional background and things like that. But I wanted to give a shot watercoloring today. And I challenge you to do the same if it's ever scared you before. So I'm going to stamp this in VersaMark ink, and this is going to emboss. Now I recommend if you're watercoloring for the first time or are a beginner to emboss your image. It helps to control the color and the flow of color because it'll stay within those embossed lines, and it just makes it a little bit easier. I stamped this multiple times because the texture on the cardstock is still a little bit textured even though I'm using the less textured side. So to get a clear impression, I had to stamp a few times using my Misty stamping tool. I'm going to cover this in some fine detail white embossing powder from Ranger, and then I'm just going to melt it. And you can see it melting along as we go. And the more I tilt it to the light, although it whites out on the screen, that's when you know and you're able to see if it's shiny or not. So to start watercoloring, I am using some Gansai Tambi watercolors here, and I'm using this pink color. I have the 24 pack of colors, and I am just mixing some water in with some of the pink, sort of pinkish red watercolor here, and I'm going along the flower. I'm going to show you how I color the main flower today. So I went along just the start of the petal, going from the middle to the very beginning of the petals, and I just colored that with a wet brush. I didn't wet my paper beforehand. And then I'm just using water now to spread out that color. So nothing too complicated here. I looked up the flower online and I noticed that it is generally pink, but it has white tips on the edge. So I'm just grabbing some white here. I know it's kind of off the screen. You can't see my white palette. And I'm grabbing it with a wet brush and just adding some white onto the edges of the petals. You can't really see the effect that has now, but you'll see it as we go along. I'm now dipping my brush right back into the water and then carrying up that pink color so that it hits the white and they start to blend together. Now, I find with watercolor, it generally takes a couple layers to get exactly what you want, and so just be patient and keep going and let your layers dry in between as well. So it's very important. You can let them air dry or you can use a craft heater in order to do that. I'm not a big fan of using my embossing gun. I find the heat to be too intense, and so I like using the craft heater from Ranger to do this, but it's not necessary. You can use your embossing gun. I find if you over emboss powder, the image itself doesn't look all that great. So I'm just going in again with the pink, the water, going back and forth until I'm happy with what I have. And then I'm just going to go ahead and blot any of the areas that I find are covering the embossing powder with a paper towel. And this will pick up any water and helps fix mistakes as well. So now that I'm going in, it's pretty much dry at this point. I'm just going in once again with some more color just to darken up the beginning of the leaves or the petals here. And then I'm just going to dry it using my craft heater. This is the craft heater that I mentioned. It creates a larger space with an even heat, and the heat isn't too intense. It's almost like a hairdryer, and almost like a hairdryer and warm, if that makes sense. And now I'm just going to go ahead in with the white again. I really want to accentuate those white petal edges and just make sure that those are very, very clear. And I think it looks super pretty with the white embossing powder, the white embossed areas resisting the color. You get those details of the flower still, and they look really, really nice. All right, so just continuing on here, I'm just fixing up my edges. Wherever there is any sort of area that has some water, you can go in with paper towel and just go ahead and wet it, and usually it will just come right off. And so watercolor is quite forgiving in that sense. Now I went ahead and colored the rest of the flowers exactly like I did in the center, so nothing too special. Now I'm just going in and doing the stems here, and I wanted to use a very, very bright green. So I'm using almost a lime green here, and then I went in with a darker color just to darken things up a little bit and just add a little bit of dimension to it. And it's just important to go in with a couple of different shades just so that you get the texture that you need. Now, in order to create some depth, I'm going in with a little bit of gray here, and I am going to go around my flower image. When I die cut the flower when it's all finished, it's hard to say whether you're going to be able to see a lot of this. And then I'm just going along with some water, as you can see, and I'm just blending it out so that it kind of fades into the background. And I'm also not forgetting the middle areas. I'm just going to wait for that to completely dry. It is necessary for it to completely dry before you die cut it, or it is very high possibility it will tear. So I'm using my Gemini Junior, which is brand new, and I'm using this to die cut my image, and you can see that it actually die cuts face up, so it's a little bit different than a Big Shot. I'm now going in with a white gel pen, and I'm just going to add some small dots to my petals. I think this really adds a lot of character and dimension to the petals here, and it just makes it look really pretty and just adds another little special effect and detail. So I hope the watercolor wasn't too complicated and my explanation was okay. I really encourage everyone to give it a try. It might not turn out the very first time you give it a try, but this one turned out quite beautifully, even though I rarely watercolor. You just never know what kind of results you're going to get, and that's kind of what I like. So I am going to go ahead with my Gemini again. I'm going to create my plate, and I'm using some fog cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. It's a very light gray color, and I'm going to go ahead and just fold over my card base. This is Neenah Solar White cardstock, 110 pound, and it is a very nice thickness for card bases. I'm going to go ahead now and add my little rectangular gray piece here, and then I am going to stick on my flower. So it's just going to have that nice background, and the gray around the flower I hope pulls in the gray background as well and just makes it sort of seep into the paper and really just seamlessly add to the design of the card. So once I have that glued on there, it's time to add a sentiment. This sentiment comes with the Sakura Mondo coordinating dies. It says beautiful, and it's very, very intricate. It's very, very pretty. And so I'm just adding my embossing bag again, and I'm stamping the inside and out from the stamp set. And I wanted to have the card say beautiful inside and out. And I'm just going to emboss this quickly in some white embossing powder. So I have the nice black and white. I think the black really shows off against the pink of the flower, but then the white is just so subtle. Lastly, I'm just going to add some clear drops here from Pretty Pink Posh. I am just going with the smaller version of them, the 4mm ones, and then I added a few of them to my card design. I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial, and you'll check out the brand new release from Ellen Hutson. I have many links up on my blog, and everything should be ready to go for you to take a look at. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.